Bonjour, comment allez-vous? How is everybody? Hey, Miss O'Neill, how are you? All right. We want to welcome everybody to We Talk. We're at it this week, and we've got a doozy for you, like we always bring you something that's different and new. So this week is going to be no different. But first of all, you all know that this is grown and sexy, so you got to have your drink. So here's to everybody on the live, and we welcome you to We Talk. And we hope that your week has been blessed. If not, we're going to add some blessings. So here's to everybody on the live. Wow. Okay, look, that went down the wrong pipe. But anyway, last week we talked about why the black culture was so imitated and exploited. We did a part 2 to that last week. So if you missed any of it and you want to check it out, I highly recommend that you do so. It's still posted on my page for 30 days, then they take it down. But anyway, we're going to talk about something that's very dear to my heart and you know, to get some understanding. And this understanding might surprise some of you, and some of you, it might just show a different perspective that you never thought about. But anyway, we're talking about what constitutes a poor or impoverished environment or living conditions. What do we consider an environment? Why do we consider it poor or impoverished? You're going to be very surprised by some of the things that we've found through our research, okay? Because automatically, when we talk about, excuse me, about people being poor and impoverished, we always talk about the slums, the hood, the ghettos. Hey, that ain't the only place. But before I elaborate and get too far into it, let me bring my co-host on. So y'all hold tight. And again, we hope y'all had a great week. If not, we're going to see can we add some value to it. Because that's our whole goal. It's just to add value to your lives. Give you information that you could possibly use. Hey,
Hey
Miss
y'all,
O'Neill,
hey.
I can hardly hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you're kind of faint. I don't know whether or not you're close to your mic or what.
Lord have mercy, Jesus. We can't be having these problems. I don't know what's wrong. I'm at my grandmama's house, so it might be her internet.
All right. Can you hear everything okay?
Yeah, I hear you good. You good.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. All right. Well, I got you now. I turned my volume up because I always got to fix it. I can't depend on you and Jesus to fix it. I got to fix it myself. Let me bring Keith on. But how are you today?
I'm good. It's been a day. I'm working the summer, some parts of the summer. I'm good. Just looking for me a new puppy because my last little Shiloh, he done went on to the Rainbow Puppy Bridge. So I'm just looking for me a new puppy.
Where did he go?
To the
To the
Rainbow Puppy Bridge. I think that's what they call it when that puppy's gone on to the great beyond. He done gone on to the Rainbow Puppy Bridge.
What's going on, Keith?
Yo, what's up, guys? My bad, man. I'm just running around. That's all. I heard Rainbow Puppy Bridge. I don't know what's going on, man.
Yeah. You know Miss O'Neill, she gonna have some cliches and all kind of old sayings. She got an old spirit, man.
Yeah, now Keith, don't be trying to act. You know that when the puppy gone and died and they done gone on to heaven, it's called the
Oh no,
Rainbow Puppy Bridge, I think.
I never heard that before. So
Well,
I
I
nah,
never
think
heard
I
that
think that's
before.
what it's called. It done
I
gone
never
on to
heard
the
that
Rainbow
before. So
Bridge.
you schooling me right now. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's what it's called. Now somebody might correct me and say no, because you know I can make up some stuff. But he was my last baby to go on. Choo Choo left here and went on to the Rainbow
Choo
Bridge
choo.
2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, no, well Choo Choo died 2 years ago. Shiloh just died recently. He done
Oh,
went on. Yeah, so they done left me. I got to find me a
I'm
nun.
sorry to hear that. So you a dog lover? What kind of dogs you like?
I'm getting me a tweenie this time. I think that's what it's called. Y'all know I mess up some stuff. It's a Chihuahua Dasher Hound mix or something like that. I'm getting that one now. I like little bitty dogs. I don't like no big dogs. Now I run from big dogs, but I do want me a cane corso from a baby.
So
So
you
you got to
want
have something that's
so
gonna
you want some
protect you.
baby dogs, and then you want a cane corso? Like really?
Yeah, but I
Really?
want them. If I get a big dog, I want them to grow with me into a baby,
Yeah,
so
you
we
got to
can
train
both.
them from a puppy. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's why let me just go on. I had a moment of silence for Choo Choo and Shiloh. Now we good.
You pick cane corso. That's interesting. Why? Let me ask you this: why cane corso?
Because they just so beautiful and so protective. So when I finally move into my mansion that I'm gonna be moving in a couple
Okay.
of, I'm gonna need a gatekeeper. That's gonna be that.
Got you. All right.
Yeah.
So
No,
you got
I
the right
like cane
one when you talk
corsos.
about a cane corso.
Yep, that's my gatekeeper right there. I'm gonna have a gatekeeper and I'm gonna have a meat keeper. The little dog gonna keep me, but the cane corso gonna get them before they get to me, so they won't have to worry about it. I got it now.
Oh
Mhm.
no, yeah, I like cane corsos. You got Rottweilers. You got a bunch of those. You got German shepherds. I just wasn't sure when you said Chihuahua and I want a cane corso. I'm like, oh, that's like a serious different. That's like a different contrast right there. I just
We
trying to
talking
say,
about me here. We talking about me. We gonna carry on now.
yeah, let's
Gonna let
carry
them go
on.
on over to the Rainbow Bridge. Going on.
God bless him. He in
So from
doggy heaven.
one extreme to the next.
No, God bless him. He in doggy heaven.
Yeah, she said the purple something. I ain't never heard that.
The Rainbow Purple Bridge or somebody. I gotta look it up. I put it back in here. What it's really called? It's somebody that went over the rainbow. That's all I know. I sang
The
somewhere
queen.
over the rainbow. Got my little dog Ashes, and I'm good.
All right, okay. All right, but let's get on with it. All right, listen. Hey, this is very interesting because listen, people always talk about being poor and what constitutes living in a poor neighborhood. If you're making $500,000 and you living in an area that's not conducive to that earning, people consider you poor. Am I not correct when I say that?
I lost you guys for a little bit. What did you say? Can you say it again?
I'm saying that we have variations of what people consider poor living conditions. You know, traditionally they refer to the slums, the ghetto, the hood, and all of those places, right? You follow me?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay. So what we're discussing tonight, and I did a lot of research on this because me and my son had a conversation about, being in a poor neighborhood, and all those elements that constitute what's being poor. We had
Right.
some disagreements. I understood what he was saying, and we kind of had a meeting of the minds, and we kind of understood everybody's point of view. So I said, let me bring it to the people on the line. So most people would say it's easy to define what's a poor or impoverished neighborhood. Most people would say, oh, that's easy. You can go look at it. If the houses are torn down, if there's a lot of crime, all of these different things. They
That's
say
not
that they
actually true.
think, excuse me?
I said that's not actually true, but go ahead. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So most people would say that's an easy question to answer. Hey, Alvin. Um, hey, Nancy. The answer to that question is obvious, but I'm telling you, it's not as obvious as we think. Just because the neighborhood is run down, there are a
Mm.
lot of things that you have to consider before you say that neighborhood is poor or impoverished. we want to answer the question, what really defines a poor or impoverished condition? We want to answer that.
Now this gonna be ruffling some people's feathers, y'all.
Oh yeah,
And
but
I
that's
and
what
I
we
say
do.
that, yeah, and I say that because I'm gonna tell you why. Um, I'm at two different schools, two different neighborhoods. Both of them are considered, well-off neighborhoods in the Atlanta area, right? But
Right.
when I see the kids come to school, it really tells the story. How I see the parents come up to the school, it really tells the story, because you can live in somewhere where people feel like the houses are run down and this and that and the other, but you go inside and it's a nice house because don't nobody know what you got in your house. And you can send your kids to school neat, clean, and this, that, and the third. So nobody ever knows about your environment, or what kind of poverty lines you cross. But I see kids all the time that come to school in Dunwoody or come to school in Brookhaven, and I'm thinking like, why in the world are they coming to school looking like that? And just because you don't wear the Jordans or you don't wear the this and that doesn't define it. So let me just say this: just because you don't wear those, that doesn't define it. But when I say how you come to school, because we came to school, we had our clothes starched up, ironed up with the oxidized soap, everything else clean to death. But now people live in certain areas, and they're living above their means because they want to be identified by a certain area.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, so
Yeah,
there's so many different factors that go into that. We all lived in what people call the hood. Like now, where I live, people, where I'm at my grandma's, they always call it the hood. But you drive, so if everything before you get to our subdivision, people say, oh, that's the hood, that's the hood. Then you get to our subdivision and it's like, oh wow. So I
okay.
mean, there's so many factors that people look at that they use to determine that, when sometimes it's very misleading and it's not true at all.
Absolutely. And the reason I say that I want this discussion is because, like I said, me and my son had a deep discussion about it. And, after we talked, it made me think. Because it's more than just being poor. Now, of course, he's married to a doctor, and his family lives in Iowa. So therefore, the conditions are already different from a metropolitan area to a city, or, where there's a high traffic areas. So after I thought about it, you know, I figured out it's more than simply being poor. His main point was economics. His main point was that, okay, people who have economic power and earn above the poverty line or earn a good wage, then they're not in poverty. All right. And also, I agree with that. Not at all defines the majority of what constitutes being impoverished. He also pointed out, y'all got to excuse me, I don't know what that drink went down the wrong pipe or something. But anyway,
Drink
he
some
also,
water, cleanse yourself.
okay, all right, because you want to hear this. All right, I'm done. All right, thank you, DeJoya, for that advice. But anyway, and he also pointed out that an area that has a high police presence, a high level of police presence, that is what constitutes an impoverished neighborhood or a poor neighborhood. Because well-to-do and luxurious neighborhoods don't have a high degree of police presence. Now, does everybody agree with that? I just want to know,
The
yeah, yeah, okay.
police, they patrol the areas, but they patrol it with a different attitude and a different reason.
Yeah,
Um, when you get into, you know, when we talk about hood is a term that's subjective. So I'm not just talking about the concrete jungle. The police presence is different because something's always going on. So and the way they police is different because they're on edge more so than any other areas, and people don't understand. That's why sometimes they grip y'all up and throw y'all against the wall, throw us against the wall, and do all that stuff because they already charged up because they're in an area that's charged up. When you in those areas, you go into certain areas, you better not ride around there with your music blasting. They're gonna be looking at you like, yo, you ain't around money. You don't understand money, or you don't understand what's going on, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with you that they police different areas different. It's based on the people that are there. It's based on what's actually happening. You know what I'm saying? And it's also a mindset, Mr. G. So I'll say this, and I'll pass it to you. What differentiates the hood is mentality. It don't matter where you live. It's your mentality. You see what I'm saying? And you could be in an area that's more upscale or be in an area that's more whatever. But if you got that hood mentality, you're going to stand out. And then you're not going to be an advance forward because the people around, they're looking at you like, oh, we can tell he ain't from around here.
Okay, yeah, and I just want to say this, and y'all usually know I don't know how to put things, nicely, but okay, so like the areas that I frequent, like where I work and things like that, those are some of the rudest, hoodest kids I ever seen in my life. Because they have and I mean that I love them, but I mean from the bottom of my heart, huh? Because they're rude. Because they're rude and they feel entitled and things like that. People kind of misunderstand us in our environments. It's usually very respectful, very family oriented, this, that, and the third. You even got fear in Auntie Betty that's next door that ain't even your auntie, but because she's been around so long, you know what I'm saying? But the kids, the elements that come out of these neighborhoods now, and I'm speaking like ritzy areas, like but what they consider Buckhead, all of these areas in Atlanta. If you're familiar with Atlanta, well, not that part. I'm saying I'm just naming a few, that were. But that again goes to my point. It used to be this way because this is the environment or this is the people and things like that. But now it's not. I mean, you get all kind of kids. That they talk bad to you. They come there with that that kind of mindset, that kind of mentality. So I mean, it's amazing when you have to look and speaking to having money when you live in like what Chenault was talking about, your son was talking about, but also I don't agree with that totally. Because I promise y'all, my aunt, I swear she must got $1 million somewhere. That woman ain't never been broke. My aunts and stuff, and we've not always lived in, we don't live in, somewhere that you like Peachtree Corners or whatever you call those areas, Alpharetta or things like that. So I think one, it's a mindset. Two, it's the habits that you develop when you don't have things, like when you're not privileged to things. It's the habits that you develop that determine the mindset. Like, if you're rich, if you're gonna be, poor or things like that. So I can't agree with that totally.
Yeah, Peachtree City is nice, by the way. I've been out to Peachtree a number of times. Peachtree is nice. Yeah, I love that. That's like about 40 minutes outside Atlanta, right? Peachtree. Yeah, I've been to. Yeah,
depending on where you're coming from.
Depending on where you're coming from.
All the way through Atlanta. But anyway, his point was if you live in an area where there's a high concentration of policing up the area, then that's the hood. That constitutes a place that's riddled with crime. That's what his point was making. And the economic part is that there's a class of people who can afford certain places to live. And if they don't have the economic power to move to an area that quote quote is nice or quote quote that's not in the hood, then they remain in an impoverished state. Now, I agree with both of those things. If you're in an area where there's always police presence and you see blue lights and sirens all through the night, then you're probably in a low income area. But my point was that's not the only thing that defines it. And of course, he's smart, so he knew that was not the only element that he was addressing. But I'm trying to take the emphasis off the police presence, because just because you have a high degree of police presence doesn't mean that the neighborhood is in problems. It could be because you're in a high traffic area. Whenever you are in an area where there's a lot of crowded people, of course, there's going to be more crime. And of course, there's going to be more police presence, because the police chief and all the officials, city officials, they're going to define where they need to concentrate on. And those areas that have high populations, little space, there's going to be a high presence of police. And that's the point I was making.
Yeah. Also, in different areas, there's lack of resources, or not. They're not
Absolutely.
privy to as many resources. You know, they may have some, but they don't have all of what's available. Like from one neighborhood to one setting to another. You know, and I don't know why that is, but you know, we've all experienced it at some point. You know, with M to M schooling, and now now they changed it because they don't want to say M to M to take the prejudice out of it. Now it's school choice things. So I mean, it's just a difference in the resources that are made available to you. And then you know, you have to become educated on these things, because they pride themselves off of, you know, someone not knowing about this. You know what I mean? Because they
Yeah,
know we're
and
only
that's
going.
why we have these
Yeah.
live streams, so that we can share this information. And by the way, we're getting a lot of views, we're getting a lot of shares, and a lot of major groups have got 1.2 million members, you know, 2 million members. So that just happened recently when I checked the analytics. So kudos to everybody who supports us, and kudos to yourself, DeJoya, and Keith as well, because what we're talking about is more interesting enough that people are paying attention. Like we said before, we can easily, you know, I'm from the quote, quote, hood. Keith is from the hood. The Jordan, you're from the hood. So we all got that story, and we all got that kind of connection to where we can talk about the dirt and the grime. But don't we have enough
But
people going through all this?
when speaking to that, like when you say that, when we say now we say the hood. When I was growing up, I never knew that it was the hood. I thought it was you know what I'm saying? Like I never knew that, because we lived a very user friendly life. You know, we shared, we never was hungry. You know, even with neighborhoods on the outskirts. So I mean, it's just amazing how things change, and how names and people get ideas about stuff, and it changes the whole aspect of who you really are, where you really are, and where you really from, and where you're going to. Period.
Well, it
Yeah,
also
and not only,
depends on what
yeah,
you believe. If
it
you
depends on
believe
what
you're
you
from the
believe.
hood, then you act like you're from the hood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like the hood. Wait a minute, no, you know. But
yeah.
you know, like I said, a lot of things. Well, everything really is based, because it's a misconception with some things, you know, and we know that. So you know, we good. We know that.
But and not only that, you have stereotypes. You have people who, if you live in a area that's not as nice as the next area, they consider, because it's less than, they consider it hood. Listen, I grew up in the hood. Alvin, I grew up in the same neighborhood I grew up. We weren't poor. We were doing well. We had parks. We didn't have that much crime. We had nice homes. We had all of that. So, but it was still considered a hood. Now, which drives me to the question, when we talk about the definition of hood, who decides that? If we live in a neighborhood that's predominantly all minority members, Is that just a hood if it's not $1 million homes?
Well, I think the white people. I mean, the government. You know, you know what, y'all? Let me tell y'all this. Y'all know, you know, and I'm telling you the truth. I don't make this stuff up. This is me in real life. The census lady. The first year she came, I talked to her. You know, I was excited. I never had gotten evaluated by the Census Bureau, so you know, I was excited, right? And
Right.
then when I really started investigating, right? I'm like, they asking me, am I black? They asking me, you know, this kind of stuff, you know. So the next year she come back, I told her, I'm like, don't come up my driveway. She say, oh ma'am, you know, it's something that you gotta do. It's your, what she say, civil duty, political duty, or something
Why
crazy.
you told her not to come up?
I'm still gonna be black. I'm still gonna die. I'm still here. I'm still gonna be black. I
But I
didn't see
mean, I
what.
don't understand the
Cause,
connection when
cause
you told her the
I
next year.
don't like, because I don't like the fact that people put us in categories and then they determine, okay, it's 25 black Americans here, or they on food stamps over here. You know, it was just the questions that was asked to
Oh,
me,
okay.
and I thought that, you know, they compile all this information, and that's what gives people
True,
the idea
true.
about what's going on. And you know, like I was telling my friend, and she was like, oh, but that was ignorant in you. I said, no, it's not smart in you because you ain't caught on, you know. And every day that lady never did come back, because every year she come back, I tell her, don't come up here because I'm gonna call the police. And I had my fly swatter the last time.
Yeah, I wouldn't have came back
You know,
either.
so I
You
mean,
know.
but I mean, you know, people don't pay attention to those things. You know, during the census, they ask you so many questions, and generally they come back to the same house every year, right? So if I'm still there and you can see I'm still the same person, am I still black? Yes. Am I still in my same situation? Yeah, because I'm still here. I'm not gonna tell you, do I make more or less? And I hate on applications, you know, when we talking about how people say what makes you poor, or how people determine that. You know, I hate when they ask me what color I am. I be like, no color. You
Well,
know,
and
because they
a
use
lot of
those
that
things.
they can't even ask that anymore. Or you can choose the other or whatever. You know.
But they still do. That's what I'm saying. And they still ask, you know, have you committed a crime? Now, you know how I feel about that shit, because Trump is a felon. You know what I mean? Have you, you know, all this stuff. But I mean, I'm just saying, they use all of this to determine what makes us be
Don't
called
block the
poor.
algorithm now. You know what I'm saying?
What
Don't
now?
block the algorithm. We're gonna be blacked out
I mean,
again like
I mean, it's
Yeah,
true. I
yeah.
mean, you know what? If my thing is, if I was speaking a blasphemy or whatever, then you correct me, you block me, you shut me down. But that's the
No, I'm
problem.
not saying I'm messing with you. You ain't say nothing
Nah,
wrong, but you can
he
still
just
Oh, you
block
know,
messing
me.
I'm
with
messing
you,
with you
man.
too. You know, I got you, but you know, and that's the thing. You know, like the things that we talk about. I don't know if taboo is the right word, but you know, a lot of people scared to talk about these things. Like they don't say
Oh,
white,
yeah.
black, this, that, and the
Or
third.
they don't have the experience or the research to
Y-
really get into
Yeah,
a
yeah.
discussion.
So
Anybody can talk about anything on the surface. But back
right.
to what I was saying, you know, so my son said that police presence and your ability to earn money and how much money you earn, so your economic status. I agree with both of those points. But to me, there's much more that has to be considered before someone, neighborhood is determined to be poor and impoverished. To your point, Miss O'Neill, that's when they do these censuses. That's how they allocate resources. That's how they direct state and federal and local funding. So you're very smart by paying attention to that because that's what happens. I don't know what degree it has changed since then, but that's exactly what the censuses were used for. Now, so I said there are more things that must be considered when we're talking about an impoverished and poor neighborhood. Such things as education, that has to be considered. Safety, age, age is one of the most important elements in my opinion. Access to resources, as Ms. O'Neill kind of eloquently kind of referred to, and and fear also influence impoverished conditions. Now, let me tell you why I think age is most important. You take Johns Creek, for example, one of the most prominent and luxurious neighborhoods in Atlanta. Johns Creek, $1 million homes. All right. You take an area like Riverdale and some places in Jonesboro and some other small outlying communities. Now, if you take the people, not the homes, but if you just take the people that live in those homes and you flop the neighborhood that we consider impoverished, if you bring the element of the members of Johns Creek and they reside in those areas, then crime and that whole definition of impoverished would change. And Keith, you hit the nail on the head. You said how people think and their mentality. So their attitude is different. Number one is different because they're older. They've got money. They're retired. They don't have the desire to go into the nightlife. So, of course, as I was telling my son, that changes everything. You won't have the police presence there. Now, if you take the neighborhoods that I'm talking about, Riverdale and College Park and Jonesboro, some of these other areas, then you move those people. Now you might have crime out the gang in Johns Creek. Why? It's because of their attitudes, and number two is because of their age. So the people who live in Riverdale and Jonesboro and Stockbridge and all these other locations, they're traditionally younger people. And anytime you have younger people, the element of crime follows them, right? Whether or not they get caught or not.
100%.
Go ahead.
100%. I said that's all. I said 100%.
Yeah, because if you're younger, you're more inquisitive. You're still living your life. When you're older, you've already lived. And even the things that young people are doing, we may not do them to the degree that they're doing, but we did the same types of things. So that's why I made it clear to him, like, okay, I hear you, boss. Yeah, when you got high police presence, that can easily be equated to a poor or impoverished and high crime area. Yeah, or else why would they be there? So that's a given. But just because they're there and because the neighborhood is filled with them, the neighborhood itself does not need to be, can be deemed impoverished. I also asked this question. What's the dollar amount for the homes that you need to meet so that you aren't in a poor community? We didn't finish that discussion. My question is, if you got $300,000 homes, $250,000 to $300,000 homes, and they're near a major exchange, a major interstate like 75, 85, right? And they have major roads. It's common sense that the crime rate may increase some. It has nothing to do with the neighborhood. It has to do with the flow of traffic.
And evaluation of that area, and evaluation of that area. If it's easily accessible, you're exactly right, Mr. G.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
and then you got people that are traveling on that particular road, and where ordinarily, if you're in Johns Creek, where there's no major exchange, no interstate, you're not going to have that flux of people driving through or driving near it. So, of course, if I don't have the population, I don't need as many police. Johns Creek or Jonesboro does not compare to New York City, or an area that's They got high-rise buildings where you got millions of people on top of each other in crowded spaces.
We were just talking about that earlier. That's crazy, Mr.
Yes, we were. That's why I brought it up.
That's why you brought it up. You playing in the live for me. Look at you, man.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Hey, I go back and recall this information. If it fits, like Johnny Crockman said, you mustn't quit. In this case, you must talk about it if it fits. So, so those are the things that I pointed out, and all of the points that we made. It was a very good discussion, and I understood it all. But statistically speaking, you don't find high crime or high police presence in retirement communities or communities where the majority of the members are older or retired. Can we all agree on that?
We can agree, but the one caveat to that is unless that's the area that's targeted, as you see with some of these young cats now, where they're going into these more affluent areas, targeting people because they also know what we're talking about. So that's another caveat to the situation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. But see, I'm trying to keep it to the point of where the members itself are impoverished because they live in that community.
Gotcha.
That's what. So I'm saying that I don't care. You can live in the slums. If you got older people, you're not going to have as much crime as though if you live in those same people move to another affluent area.
Agreed.
You're not going to have that much crime. If you got young people that live in the same area, the crime rate is going to increase. If you move those same people to Johns Creek, the crime rate will increase. So it's not the neighborhood, it's the people. Now, economically, you have to be at a certain point above the poverty line to get out of those circumstances. And the reason I'm saying all that is because you can have a two-parent family home, and their combined income can be $100,000. But because of cost of living and a lot of other factors, their disposable income may only amount to $50,000. So even though that couple is above what we consider, or the federal government considered above the poverty line, they are barely making it. So they ain't going to be able to move into that $300,000 house, even though their income says that they should be able to. Now, Miss O'Neill, I know you can speak to that.
You talking about how the income determines the situations?
Right. Are there something, where you're earning money, but your take home pay
Oh
is
yeah.
a lot
Oh,
less?
okay. So
It's about
y'all,
what you
baby,
do with what you make. It's about
baby,
what you
let me
do with
tell
what you make.
y'all. Let me
Go
tell
ahead.
y'all about this now. So back in the day, to work at a school system was like the premier job, especially for Black women. You had the AKA. That was a main thing, teachers and whatever. But unfortunately, now in these times, yes, I love working, I love the kids, but my take home pay versus my real living expenses it doesn't match, because you can make 50 or 60,000 dollars. I'm just giving y'all about the lowest ballpark within my field. 50 $60,000, but your take home pay is not that. You can get a $2,000 check, but by the time they get through chipping away, your check is nine something. So the things that people consider these professions, and working and to put back into the community and the kids, you don't do it for the money, you do it for the kids, because you don't get the money anymore. So your living income, and you trying to make a life for yourself, does not match what the economy is. So that's a key factor, also, in these situations. And I see it a lot amongst the parents. I see them in these nice houses in Dunwoody and Brookhaven, but if you really see them, you get what I'm saying? It don't match. So,
Yeah.
You find
Yeah.
that a lot of people are just working are just in this to survive, to stay in a area that, you know, their kids can get the good education and feel safe. Because as I said about the resources and the education, even though I'm from an old school kind of home where you know, education extended far beyond the schoolhouse, you know. But now, you know, with the younger parents coming along and things like that, they believe that you just supposed to get it in the schoolhouse. So, you know, hence, you know, they believe the area you in says you're going to have a better education, which is not so if you don't,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
the reason I wanted to point that out is because I'm showing the disparity
You showing what
between
now?
the disparity, how
Uh-huh.
disparate the money amount. You can make $100,000, right? And of course, if you're making $150,000, then you can afford to live in a nice home compared to somebody making $50,000, right? But here's my disdain. Here's the thing that people don't consider. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the poverty line is per the federal government. What they say is the poverty line. So, but my point, back to my point, you're making that money. If you have a medical emergency, or if you have something that happens that's catastrophe that happens in your life, or let's say the person that you're married to, you're no longer married, or they lose part of their income, you immediately fall below that poverty line. There's no program. Listen, and I'm saying this
Well,
from experience. When I
let me say something to that, right? So you talking about what the government says, and I you know, I'm very transparent and I speak from my I can only tell you the truth based on what I've been through. So there was a time that, you know, you have to go out, you know, I was working two jobs, you know, trying to, you know, get the kids, you know, in school, and I was on assistance or whatever. And I went down there and I was like, well, you know, I need food stamps, right? Well, they told me, well, no, you working two jobs, you know, and you got two kids in your household, you know, you can make it. And if you got a car, you know, because they asked, you know, do you have cars or whatever. The lady actually told me, well, I could sell my car. And then she said, well, if you Uber, listen now,
all
if you
right.
Uber, she say you can ride the bus. I looked at her and I told her, I said, lady, you crazy as hell. I got to be to work at 5:30. What bus runs that time of morning? So I say that to say this, y'all, you know, the government programs and the what's the word I want to say, Key, y'all, the dynamics that they use to determine these, it's
The
unreasonable.
requirements.
And they will tell you, if they will tell you, if you go down there and you say, well, you know, my mama paid my medical bills, my mama paid my for the doctor or whatever, if you're trying to get Medicaid. Oh, well, you know what, well, if she can do that, you know, we that don't go towards, you know, your bills this much, you had this much free money. So I mean, and when the lady in Straw, if y'all watch Straw, you know, she said people don't realize how expensive it is to be poor. And when she said that, if you are in our community, whatever, or you're a struggling parent, whether you're a father or a mother or whatever, you understood that. That brought you to your knees, you know. So these are the things that they go by. You can't go and you know, you need medical care. And I tried to explain to the lady, I'm like, well, I'm working two jobs because my rent is $1,700. You know what I'm saying? So how do I survive off of minimum wage that was at the time lower than it is? What is it now? Seven something,
I
right?
don't know what it is.
It's I think it's like 7 or 8, you know, dollars. I think it's like Keith. You
I think
know
it's a,
what
I think
minimum
it's a little, I
wage
think
is?
it's a little higher than that. I mean, maybe it's higher out here because I'm up north. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay.
They probably adjust the minimum wage based on the geographical area.
Right.
I
And
would say
yeah.
up north, I could tell you minimum wage ain't $7. It's definitely more than
Yeah.
that. They in the
Right.
double
because
digits
y'all
up there.
talking. But that,
Yeah.
and that's another thing I want to say. Mr. Branch, they'll give you raises in your job, and this speaks to how you can determine if you're poor. You know how people determine it. So they'll give you raises in your job. They gave us like a $2 raise or something last year. Well, guess what they did when you do insurance? They raise insurance 15, 20, $30. And you have to have these things to live. So I mean, there's so many factors that people don't look at when they say what makes you poor, or what makes you this, or
But
what makes you that.
but everything
That's
that you're saying and everything that Mr. G is saying, we have to also add to the live is based on geographic. Because the
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
geographical
yeah.
area that you're in,
demographics,
the cost of
demographics as
living is
well.
different. The demographic, the geographic, the cost of living
Hmm.
is different in whatever area you're from, but the principle is still the same. So, for
Do
example, if
that
it's
for some there.
$7.50, if it's $8 in Georgia, okay, it might be $16 here, but it's still the same thing because your dollar doesn't go as far. So it's not about
Absolutely.
how much you make; it's
Yeah,
about the
but
cost of living, and
yeah,
that's
but
how they.
but
You see what
when
I'm
you
saying?
say that, but see when you say that, and like I hear, I go again. Government earbuds gonna go off. That's why you should consider somebody's living wage. Or
Exactly.
put a cap on. There's no way, and y'all, and this speaks to everything. There's no way that if you have a family, you should have to live in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids or with 2 kids and yourself because you can't afford I'm just saying, just adequate living space. I'm
No,
not saying,
let's agree on this. 100,000, 150,000 in Georgia is
huh?
different than 100,000, 150,000 in New Jersey or New York.
Right, but
Absolutely.
that's what I'm trying to say. It should be a living wage according to your area, your state. Even if they want to go by state or what, I don't care. But I'm just saying the everything is set up so unfair because it's set up to make you fail. It's set up to keep you in the poor man's mindset. It's set up so that you don't manifest the proper things in your life, and your spirituality is weak. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's just my take on it,
I
guys.
agree. Now listen, some of us have done well. I mean, some of us have done well. But if you were reared properly and taught certain things, you're not happy just because you're successful. At least my parents taught me that. So I can live in a mansion and have all this money and all that other stuff. But I'm always, for some other reason, and it may be because I'm older and I understand life now and I understand the responsibility of giving back to those who are less fortunate. I've been doing that for many, many years now. So even though there are onesies and twosies that make it, that does not speak for the multitude of people who haven't. So back to our basic question, what constitutes an impoverished living condition?
Thought process.
Yeah, that too.
Well, I
There
mean, I
has to
think it,
be,
I think it's a thought process and all the things we talked about, but I don't think it always remains to be certain things. I
well,
think sometimes it changes.
I'm gonna say
here's
this, and
my
I'm gonna give it to
fix.
Mr. G. I'm gonna give it to Mr. G. Here's
All
why
right, go
I say that.
ahead,
Here's
D.
here's why I say that, DeJoya. There's people that make it out the most impoverished areas, and they become great, right? Why did they get out? It's because of their thought process. They still beat the circumstances. That's all I'm saying. Now, they might have had other things that were in their favor. If you're LeBron James, everybody ain't 6'9", 260. But even though you're 6'9", 260, you know the type of thought process and maturity he had to have to be mature enough in high school at 15, 16 to be what he was. And this is what I'm saying. People, so all I'm saying is they create these dynamics and this demographic for us, but the cream always rises to the top. It doesn't matter where you're at. That's why I'm saying it's thought process, because every dynamic is different. That doesn't mean that cards aren't stacked against you. That's not what I'm saying. How
Right.
come certain people still make it out and how come
There you go.
everybody else doesn't? The reason that they don't is because it's thought process and not giving up. Some people had that thought process, but they gave up because they said, God didn't promise me this or God this. No. God told you to choose. The Supreme Architect told you to choose. So if you're giving up now based on the circumstance, I get it. It's hard as hell. but that's not what I'm saying. The person that made it, they never gave up. Go ahead, Mr. G.
Oh yeah, very well said, Keith, and that's a point that I was going to make. But I'm glad you went ahead and kind of explained it the way that you did. Impoverished conditions generally refer to circumstances where individuals lack the resources and opportunities. So there are two things that refer to what being impoverished is, and that's the lack of resources and opportunities. Now, just like Keith just indicated, the cream rises through the top, and there's some people who have no quit, and they're going to make it regardless of their circumstances. My thing is that for the majority of the people who have been disadvantaged, disenfranchised, and they create a system, I'm saying that the system has to be vamped so that people who can't get it right,
Agreed. I agree with you.
At least they can live in safe communities. Now, there's nothing that's going to guarantee your safety. There's nothing that's going to guarantee that you can live in an area that's not infested with crime. But statistically, it shows where people have nice neighborhoods, and this is the psychology of certain communities as well. If you have a nice neighborhood with nice homes, manicured lawns, it forces the mentality of someone who's less than to meet that standard. That's been proven. So even though we may not have the appropriate resources or income, then if we really think about getting into a better place, our attitude will change if we are forced to meet a higher standard. That's just the way I look at it. But of course, we know that in order to change your circumstances, you've got to be able to have access to the resources and opportunities. I'm going to go back to what Tupac said. This is something I strongly agree with. Tupac said many years ago, and don't get me wrong, anyone who works hard and has been successful in their lives, I believe that they deserve it and they earn it, and they should have it. I don't believe, why does one person have $1 billion when you got 100,000 who don't have $1?
If we talking about Elon Musk, who we talking about?
Not only him, and
Oh.
not just the billion, but what I'm saying, DeJoya, is this: in a system where systematic oppression occurs, then you can't say that the resources are not there, because if one person has it, then another person doesn't have anything. Then there's a moral responsibility that that person must look out for this individual or that individual family. Now,
I wanted to know that same thing myself, because back in the day, a lot of y'all may don't know this, but like for courtesy meal, like if a kid owed so much money, we were supposed to get him a cheese sandwich and milk or whatever. Then it went to a grilled cheese sandwich. And y'all know what? Every time they used to come do my review, I used to get rolled up because I couldn't do that. I couldn't have something that somebody needed, you know what I'm saying, and not give it to them. So I don't understand how that even happens. I really don't.
well, it happens all the time. What's up, Clifton? It happens all the time. But, all I'm saying is this: everyone on the planet, and I'm not trying to change the world, I'm just trying to change the attitude of how people look at certain things. Everyone is entitled to the essential resources of life: food, water, shelter, health care, and other social detriments that limit opportunities should be removed. Some of these things that we have in place, they are social detriments that restrict people from even living barely a good quality of life. Low income is a primary indicator of impoverished conditions, particularly. We're not even talking about the ones who make $100,000 and they're living good today, and then tomorrow someone has a medical emergency that kind of depletes all of their savings and changes their whole world. We're not talking about those individuals, even though they're affected too. We're talking about the individuals who are below the poverty line. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with self-interest or anything that they've done themselves. They cannot not afford to do certain things. And that's because there are economic and other detriments that restrict them from breaking that glass ceiling. All right? The poverty threshold is defined by the federal government. Again, as you said, DeJoya, they do these consensus. So they decide what the poverty line is. I don't know how they can get it wrong when they can look at the street and see all of the homeless people, all the people who are being evicted, all the people who don't earn more than $100,000 a year, all those people who are on these federal assistance programs. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with them for those who need them. But I guarantee you, the ones who want to do better, if you give them the opportunity, they will do better. So social detriments are factors beyond the income. These are factors beyond their income that contribute to impoverished condition. Education. A lack of education or training can limit job opportunity. So how the hell can you have a good job when you can't afford to go to school because you got to watch your baby sister, or because you have conditions in your home that takes away from your concentration? Now, it's an individual effort to do better, and I don't make excuses for anyone. Everybody that knows me know that I'm hard on, hey, do what you got to do, and then you can get some help. But don't sit back and don't do anything and expect somebody to give you something, because it ain't going to happen. So if there's an opportunity for someone with the education and you don't have it, that further eliminates you. Discrimination, we already know. Racism and discrimination has already created barriers to employment opportunity. We know that. I don't care what degree you got or how long you've been buddied with the son of the CEO. Through that system, racism and discrimination is going to limit your opportunity. Now, here's something that we don't talk about and haven't until recent years. Keith talked about your thought pattern. This goes hand in hand with that. Mental health. Now, we know as minority men, we never, at least me and the people I grew up with, all my homies, all the people from my neighborhood, no one that I knew had mental health issues but the people who we considered retarded, right? Those people were obvious because they had a physical way that we could surmise that something was wrong with them. But now mental health is one of the number one priorities in the United States. And emphasis has now been placed on it for minority members. But think about this. After all those years where mental illness was never discussed, there was no treatment, there was no help, it was taboo, you still have all of that baggage with you. So that contributes to an impoverished or poor state or condition and a poor state of mind. Environmental factors. Living in areas with poor environmental conditions, we're talking about the hood, a lack of access to not only safety, but we're talking even water, clean water. There are people who live in impoverished areas who can't keep their water on and or can't pay their electric bill. You know, so those things are all contributing factors that concern the environment. All right, now let me talk about impoverished conditions. To further define the impoverished conditions, these are based on the federal government's guidelines. And that's why I'm with you, DeJoya, when they start talking about these consensuses and all of this data collection and all of that is manipulative and designed to obtain a certain objective. They say a family of 4 is considered impoverished if they earn $30,000 or less per year. Think about that. $30,000 less a year for a family of 4.
And that, like I
Man,
said, that sound real stupid. Cause how you gonna go to you gonna buy your necessities? You know, you gonna need a pair of drawers, socks, shoes, all that at some point. You know, that's the kind of thing that ticks me off, you know, especially when I hear people say, you know, I hear a lot of people say, oh, well, you make this much money. Well, what does that mean?
yep, I'm with
You
you.
know, what does that mean? And you know, the sad thing is there are people that sit up there and support this, because this can't pass without a lot of people agreeing or voting or, you know, putting this into play without questioning. And I mean, my thing be with people, like when people say stuff I think is stupid like that, I'd be like, well, how much you make? So what you living off of? You know what I mean? So you know, but then when you want to put that question out there, they don't want to hear about that. Oh, well, I work for mama. I this, I did. Well, we do too.
Yeah.
You know, so
I
that's
just
the crazy part.
I just find that astonishing that they say a family of 4 is considered impoverished if they earn $30,000 or less per year. Now, to put those numbers in perspective, the median, which is the average household income in 2025. Now, this is when they say median, this is the average number that people earn. The median income in 2025 is $75,580. That's three times the poverty threshold. Now, let me expand on it a little bit. So, if you're making $30,000 a year and you are a family of 4, you're automatically just thrown out. You are poor. You're impoverished. So if they know that, and the average is $75,000 for a family of, even for a family of 4, why isn't something done to improve that person who's making $30,000? We talk about skills. Now, there's a lot of stuff that has to go into play, but we're talking about why people are considered impoverished and poor. If the system is
It's
designed to keep you in an impoverished state, then why are we even having a consensus? Why are we having discussions? Because there's nothing going to change until the definition or the living conditions of those individuals improve. If you're not going to improve those conditions, then how do you feel that you're changing the way people live? We all
Because
get
that's
politicians.
because you asking that, but that's a way for them to maintain power. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to keep what's the word, we was talking about that before, for them to keep the reins on. You know what I mean? If they made it for everybody to succeed or everybody to have a decent living, then they would have a problem. You know what I'm saying? If they made it so everybody could get a proper education to go to school and things like that, they would have a problem because they know it's a vicious circle. Well, I can't get a job because that commercial used to say it best. I can't get a job because I need to go to school. I can't go to school because I don't have the money. I can't get the right money that I need because I don't have a car. You know, so they always know that. You know, even though some people make it out to the next level, they always know that the majority of the people probably won't make it that way. You know, so that's how they keep us, that's how they keep your foot on your neck so you can't breathe, so you can't expand and you can't grow. Just it is what it is.
All right. I agree with you. Hey, but seriously, you know, I try to shed light on things that I've actually experienced and seen in my life. You know, I've been with many millionaires in the music industry and entertainment. Um, live in a well-to-do neighborhood, all of that stuff. And, you know, I sit back and I talk to people, you know, because everybody has the broad conversation. They like to have the broad conversation where everybody is user friendly. Nobody wants to ruffle feathers. As me and Keith were discussing earlier today, the people who have control over this situation, there are only certain things that we have been taught to do. And one of the examples I gave, you know, in the industry and other places, Thanksgiving times, everybody with the money, they give out turkeys. I mean, how many turkeys you gonna do, and how many years you gonna continue giving out turkeys? You go buy their house, pay their rent up for a year. Do something that's gonna make a significant impact, and don't say you ain't got the money, because if you are in the system and you're favored, which a lot of people are, it ain't because they're more talented. It's because they go along and they get along. So when you are in that position, and you don't have to do it out loud, but there are a lot of things you can do to improve people's lives and get them above the poverty line so that their lives will be enhanced. That's the only point that I'm trying to make. So when we come up with all these definitions, and we know if you did a census on the average household income, then you know how many people making less than $30,000. So if that number is significant, oh, let's create programs, and that's fine. Some people need, but I'm here to tell you, most people, if given the opportunity, they'd rather do well for themselves than to depend on the system. And we should be saying that we want to lessen the strain on the system and help these people do well. But we know how it goes. Once you get somebody comfortable in a certain position, if they become the gatekeepers, then they do what's necessary so that their lives stay in the same position. So that's where we are. Now, we live in one of the wealthiest nations in the world, if not the wealthiest. We got Qatar and Saudi and a lot of those other places per capita, Dubai, that makes more money than we do. But by far, and in general, we are the wealthiest country on the planet. Now, that's very important. In 2023, 2 years ago, over 36 million people lived in poverty. And that's according to their census. They are the ones responsible for collecting this data. So that's why I say this information is critical. So if they collect the information and they know 36 million people live below the poverty line, then someone should actively be coming up with systems to alleviate that, take the strain off the system, and to enhance and improve these people's lives. That's my position. Now, whether or not it changes anything or not, I don't know. I doubt it. But at least we can put it out there so people can be consciously aware of what's going on.
Hey, Mr. G, it's just like what you said earlier. Some of these celebrities, some of them, not all, they do what they do, and they told, give some turkeys out at Thanksgiving. You gave back. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's what actually keeps the system intact. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? I thought about what we talked about, and I still haven't processed everything because you be dropping a whole bunch of stuff all at once. Did he be doing that to you? When you talk to him, he hit you with like a whole bunch of stuff.
All the time.
You like,
You
Mr.
know
G, I
what?
didn't even think about that. I ain't never looked at it that way.
You know what? I be thinking. Listen, I be thinking I'm in the matrix. So when a key phrase hit me and the code come into view, I be like, I need to write that down. Never mind about anything else. Just what I got. Yeah, that's how you have to do it.
Hey, me and Keith had a good conversation today. We talked about the sun and all of that.
That I ain't even.
We ain't gonna bring that one up on this. That's a different line.
That you dropping some prerequisite Masonic stuff on me. I got it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So now here's the other part of that. Listen, we just talked about the $30,000 a year being in poverty. Man, I can't fathom why after all these years, no one when they collect this information, and again, we're the wealthiest country on the planet, why the gap has not drawn closer. Now, don't get me wrong, I know there are going to be people you can't help, and I'm a strong advocate for helping yourself. If they ain't ready, then they ain't ready. You know, that's just how it goes. You move on to those who are ready. First, you do a survey and try to survey the people who are ready, people who are interested, people who are trying, people who are, as the Georgia said, are working 2 jobs, people who got kids and don't have the adequate medical insurances to make sure that they are right. You start with those. So here's the other part. We talked about that 36 million people are like that. However, 2/3 of the people facing food insecurity in America reported incomes above the poverty line. So what does that tell you? Yeah, I'm making $100,000, but I got this house note, I got a car that I can't trade in right now because I'm barely making enough money right now, which above the poverty line could be $30,001. That's above the poverty line, right? But I still have to struggle. So we got.
You know what? Everything you saying is true, but I think that nowadays, like, you don't find a lot of people willing to band together. You know what I mean? And not to like jump off topic, but that was what. And I'm not going pulling the color card here, but that's what Black Wall Street was about. You don't find many people willing to build together. You understand what I'm saying? You find more people willing to tear apart together. So if we found people that really were willing to build together, how I ain't called y'all with nothing in a long time, but we'll call people, hey, I want to know how to do this, or I know how to do this. You don't find that these days.
I mean, DeJoya, what you saying
So,
is right. Listen, what you're saying is right about the build together. But the part about building together is you can only build together with people that's trying to build something on their own. So then you come,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. I left that little part out. I left that
yeah,
little
no,
part
I'm,
out.
with you. I'm just adding that because that's what we
Yeah.
saying. Basically, what you're saying. So when we talk about the topic about the poverty line and the thought process, there's people that's in that space that we talking about that could build together, but because they don't have a goal for themselves, right? It doesn't matter. Look, dreams are costless. Dreams don't cost you anything. Putting a dream board together or having positive affirmations, reading some positive books, doing self-care, all this stuff. That's cost. That doesn't cost anything really. Some books got a book $5, $6, $10, whatever the case may be. It's about the people who are willing to invest in themselves. And a lot of us don't understand what that means, investing in yourself. Investing in yourself is reading a book. Investing in yourself is looking at the masses and saying, okay, well, I understand that something's not right here. So let me figure out for myself what's not right and how I can figure out my angle. Because
Okay.
everybody's angle is different. Go ahead, Mr. G.
Yeah, because it's like this. There are things that can be done, and you're exactly right. You got to have the right people with the right mindset. Listen, I think this. You can find one or two people to start, right? But it's so difficult because people turn you off so quickly when you're trying to help them because of their own ignorance. You know what I'm saying? When you don't have the type of people who think like you, act like you, have the same drive and get up, you don't want to waste too much time with. At least I don't anyway. What I want to do is find someone who's already ready, find those people who are ready, because anything that I have and anything that any of us have is a blessing from the grand architect. I often say we're only renting this stuff. Because when it's time to go, you can't take nothing with you. You don't even know what's going to happen with it. So I'm saying while you're here, these people who are struggling and in those positions of poverty and trying to do well, then we have to seek them out. You know, and again, listen, I know what hustling is. I used to hustle. So you're going to have all the people trying to hustle and try to get something for nothing. So if you go into it with that expectation, then you can avoid giving too much to people who are undeserving. So I just talked about 2/3 of the people who are above the poverty line have experienced food insecurity, meaning they don't even have enough food in a lot of cases. And I don't know how the food stamp program works, and I'm not even going to get into that discussion. But I know people who I deal with and talk to before, you know, so one person getting $800 worth, and then another person getting 100. I'm saying, what kind of, you know, and all of them are pretty much in the same type of situation. So that systematically has developed into something that is not fair and is not yielding a lot of success. Now, so we're talking about those people, and we're not talking about people who desire to buy mansions or create a luxurious lifestyle. We're talking about hardworking people who experience making ends meet or just providing basic needs like food and shelter for their families have deficits. We're talking about those people, not the people selling drugs, not the people committing crimes. We're talking people who are trying to improve themselves. So if I have an experience, that's what I love about the military so much. And I think all communities and societies should mirror that community ethic and camaraderie. You ain't gonna be no soldier and not have food, because if it gets to the wrong person in your chain of command, then somebody is gonna pay a penalty for that. So at all costs, they're gonna make sure you got food, you're gonna have shelter, you're gonna have clothing, you're gonna treat your family members with respect and love. If you don't do those things, there are penalties, and they rehabilitate for a while, then either you get kicked out or you go into jail. And there's no if, buts, or any of that. You don't have to worry about the basic necessities of life. That's why that community works. Now, granted, the mission is totally different. You got to be fit to fight. Your command don't want you to have all kind of problems because it's going to affect you mentally and it's going to affect the mission. That's why they afford all of these things. If your spouse has a talent or skill, they're going to go out their way to help her find employment, whether or not it's on base or in the surrounding communities. And everybody knows if you say that my spouse is in the military and you apply for that job, you better have a damn good reason for not giving it to them if they don't if they qualify. Because once it gets back to the wrong people, then your whole establishment is going to suffer. They're going to ban that establishment. So if you're in a community where your livelihood and the income factor is affected by all those members of the military on that particular installation, you ain't trying to mess that up. Because if you do, you're going out of business. Trust me. So we're talking about those people who are just trying to make ends meet and have a good quality of life. And like I said, what Tupac said, it don't make sense to me either. Now, I've got 2 homes. And I think that's okay. How does it make sense? And both of them ain't mansion. How does it make sense for somebody to have 10 houses, sometimes 3 or 4 in the same city, and somebody don't have a shack or nowhere to live? And again, if you earned it, then more power to you. But I'm just saying, theoretically, there has to be something wrong with that picture, and it has to be wrong with society if they can't see that that's distortion. It's way out of whack. And I'm not saying take their 10 home, but I'm saying if someone has 10, at least that person should have 1. That's all that I'm saying. We have people who are actually starving. You don't hear the stories, you don't see them, and I don't hear them often. In my Masonic work, yet we hear about homeless and people who are having a hard time, and we assist those people whenever possible. But if those are the ones and twos that we help, can you imagine all the ones that go unnoticed? Are the ones who don't receive any help at all, and you're in the wealthiest country in the world, and some person has $10 million homes. Something seriously wrong with that imbalance. I don't care what nobody said. And I'm only talking about the people who are hardworking. That segment of people are the ones that concern me the most. The criminal element, everybody's going to have to deal with that. That's just a fact of life. It's been that way since the beginning of time. I just don't think it's fair for that to happen and for people to live that way. Again, I've done well. I'm good. And I help as many people as I can. But I'm also humble enough to know that whatever I have, it was because of the good grace of God and my hard work and dedication and wanting better. Some people can't think that way. Some people are not in that situation. The ideal situation, people would do what most rational people would do. But if I got to hear gunshots every night, I could be the smartest person on the planet. Or if my baby is starving, I could be the best person that you would want to be around. That's going to change everything in my world. All right. Okay, I think we're almost out of town, so I'm gonna give out of time. I'm sorry. I'll give Keith and DeJoy an opportunity to say their closing words.
I just think this was a very informative topic, you know, for those on the live and for us that took part in
Amen.
the live, and to really be able to define what constitutes poverty or what we think constitutes poverty and how it really matches up to how what the government really does do to say constitutes poverty, you know. So I mean, you know, y'all just take time and research and think about things when you put in positions when they ask, you know, certain I call them trigger questions because they all trigger me to be thinking some other stuff. You know, I be going back to slavery time like they trying to get me again, you know. So I mean, y'all you know, start thinking
You
about it,
wasn't no
start
slave.
questioning. Well, I'm just saying, about to make me want to go back, make me think I'm going back. You know, or they gonna take me back. You know, I never would there, but they might take us back. You know, so if y'all like when with the Forgotten Time piece by Joyce Licorice, you know, you read that book, it'll make you think about some stuff. You know, so just think about that, y'all, and thank y'all for tuning in and continue to tune in, and we love y'all.
Right. Keith, you got anything you want to add?
All I'll say is ditto. Just like Patrick Swayze said to Demi Moore in Ghost, ditto. That's all. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, this was most enjoyable to me. Anytime we have these kind of discussion, it kind of gets to me a certain kind of way because I traveled all over the world and seen some things, and I think it's a lot better world when people have what they need. I don't care if you got flammers and you got people who are going to take advantage of every opportunity. But we can't concern ourselves with that. So, in conclusion, we're all the same. We're all the same. And I ain't going to get biblical in the eyes of God. None of that. We're all the same. All right? We all deserve a good quality of life. That's a fact. We all deserve it. Whether or not we got it or not, we deserve it. And it's promised to us. And if we had the opportunity and what is rightfully ours in a lot of different cases, and I'm not only talking black people, I'm just talking about people who have bosses that treat them unkindly, people that steal from them, all of those different elements. We're all the same. While being impoverished include income, it also includes safety, opportunities, and resources. And the bottom line to it all is this: we all have the same ability when we are given the same opportunity. If we're given the opportunities, anyone, most people will excel. If given the opportunity, most people don't want you to give them anything. They'd rather get it themselves. So we all deserve a good quality of life. So thank you all. Au revoir, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next Wednesday. Now let me get to the
Yeah.
game.
Just bye for me, y'all. He be saying all that. Okay, bye. See y'all
Bye.
next week. Love you.